Welcome, everybody. Sorry, we're about 30 seconds late, and it's always Pat's fault.
No, no, you can't. You
Yeah,
can't put this one on me. I
your
was just
headphones
talking to
weren't
you off
weren't
camera.
working. It was just the Bluetooth wasn't working. It's always something. It's always
Excuses,
something.
excuses.
Excuses. Well, happy Thursday again, and happy Thursday to our awesome community, and it's filling up. Chris, the first person to say hi,
Hey,
and
Chris.
Matt, we're bringing you on in a little bit. We can't wait. So this will be fun. So the sun is shining, Pat. You have
I
natural
know.
sunlight coming into your camera there.
I do. I'm literally looking just pat on the other side of my laptop here. I'm looking out at a
Yeah,
beautiful Minnesota blue sky, and it's man, is it needed?
I know.
You know, it's been a gray couple of weeks here
It has
in
been.
Minnesota, and it just feels so much different once spring really seems to be arriving here.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's nice, and I think it's going to be in the 80s this weekend. So
It's nuts.
yeah. And hey, Chris. Hey, Elsa. Happy Thursday. Absolutely. It's a good day to be Thursday, right? That's what we always say. Um, so Pat, what we have, this is going to be a fun episode. I'll first um, kind of give a quick setup, and then I want to just do some small chat with you about a few things. But today we're going to talk about a lot about inspiration. We're going to talk about education. Those are kind of the core elements of what we're going to be talking about: inspiration, education, and then of course connection, which ties all of this together. And Pat, our tagline is inspired change, and we inspire change. So I want to talk about that in a moment and how all of this connects. And we just happen to be bringing on a guest who is the CEO and founder of a place called Inspiring Workplaces. So
How about
coincidentally,
that?
this is a very inspirational conversation. Um, so I want to talk about, um, number one, why being inspired matters.
Hmm.
And and this is sort of in anything and everything we do, whether it's, and those who are getting to know you and I as brothers know we have a lot of interest, from film to music. Pat, you're an avid skier and mountain biker, and you're inspired to get better at what you do, and we're inspired by so many things in our lives. So, um, I guess my first question would be, I know there's a few things, Pat, that we're working on, and I want to kind of give the mic to you, that are a little outside of the radical world, which is in our world of film, which we talk about often. But that's a big inspiration source for us,
Hmm.
and it's beautiful. And storytelling is so important to us as well, and the concept of connection and education, right? Because film does storytelling, you learn. So I wanted to just talk a little bit about this film that's going to be officially announced this weekend. Um, and let's give the mic to you a little bit to talk about that. And let me know, why does inspiration matter to you? To you, Pat Riley.
All right.
There you go.
Big. Those are, yeah, two big questions. So first of all,
Yeah.
Riley Harder Pictures, which is the company that Dan and I manage with our third partner Philip Harder, who we've had on the show a few weeks ago. We're proud to announce the world premiere of the documentary called, drumroll please, The Claw. So The Claw is the story about a famous wrestler named the Baron von Raschke, and he was sort of part of the kind of the early class of wrestlers in the 1960s and into the 19 so started in the early 60s and then through the 70s and eventually through the 80s. He had a long career, and he was a villain. So in wrestling, they have there's the heel or the villain, and then there's the baby face. The baby face is sort of the good wrestler, and in many ways, there you go. Chris said he was my favorite when he was a kid. He's really,
Yeah.
yeah, great, and he was just he was the classic villain. And I didn't grow up. I mean, Chris, sounds like you grew up with wrestling. Dan and I didn't grow up with it. Certainly when we were younger, it just wasn't part of our world. But I know it was a really big deal, especially for kids here in the Upper Midwest. I hear the stories about people after church on Sunday they would watch wrestling in the afternoon on TV. It's
Yeah.
just sort of a big part of the culture. But anyway, so The Claw is going to have its world premiere at the Minneapolis St. Paul International Film Festival on Friday, May 14th. And it's going to be actually screened. They're doing an outdoor, kind of a hybrid indoor-outdoor screening venue here in St. Paul. And it's going to be amazing. So I think there's maybe 200 people are going to be invited or something. But it's been really phenomenal to see the interest in this film. We just announced this last week, and all the major, not all the major media, but much of the media here in the Twin Cities is writing features on it. Pioneer Press, Star Tribune, a couple of the TV stations are going to be talking about it. There's just a lot of interest in this movie, and the reason why kind of comes a little bit back to inspiration, Dan, is the movie ends up being this incredible story about family. So it takes us through this wild world, this fun ride of wrestling, and especially for those of us that weren't part of that subculture in that world, it's a great kind of window into it. But it ends up being, in many ways, an inspiring story about a life well lived. And as it turns out, the Baron, who's actually Jim, was just a normal dad with a family here in the suburbs. But then he would go off and be this super villain and go all around the country, actually all around the world, and wrestle people like Jesse Ventura and Andre the Giant and Mad Dog and all these famous characters. Yeah. And as the story goes, as it moves, we really get inspired by the connection these people have together, the idea of community, the way this family worked as a community. And one of my favorite parts of the movie is it kind of gets into this idea of is wrestling real or is it fake? And we all know that, generally speaking, professional wrestling, I'm going to spoil this for some people, it's kind of fake. It's made up.
Sorry, Chris. I know you thought it was.
I know. I thought it was real.
Yeah.
But but I'm not going to give the movie away. But when the movie finishes, it makes you rethink that. It does, and that's why the film really works, because the bigger idea of this work of this wrestler in this community is that it really is a committed life. It's a life of purpose. It's a life of entertainment, and it was very real for these families and these people. Yeah. And when those guys hit the ground, that was really real, and some of the injuries they would sustain and the realities of that lifestyle was very real, and the impacts it had on the world, because these are almost like morality plays, wrestling. And so as that plays out, those kind of archetypes kind of reinforce these ideas. So it really functions on many different levels. So I'm really excited about this film. It's been kind of a secret project we did over the last year, because much of it was shot before COVID, and we were just basically working on the edit in the background for the last year. But really excited to have this world premiere. And I'll tell you, I don't want to give too much away, but the critics are having really good response to it so far, and I think the film's going to do really well. So there, that was a kind of a long answer to your question.
No, it's great, and I think that's really, actually it fits in nicely, and I do think. Wrestling was that question around, is it real or not? I mean, the abuse and the hard work and commitment that everyone involved. I mean, it's a very real job. Maybe, of course, who's going to win is predetermined, but that doesn't make the job not real. And I think it did inspire so many wrestling fans, right? And it became almost a good versus evil, a community love and a love to hate and a hate to love type mentality. But I think it's a really interesting, over the past 20, 30, 40 years of professional wrestling, or 50 years, I suppose. It's pretty remarkable, how it's still, even today, in its new format, continues to be a sport that so many people love. So yeah, I'm really proud of this movie. And Pat, after we both were spending so much time with Tuscaloosa, which is a movie we love and are so proud of, that was a heavy storyline, and it was very, very important to us and what we believe in. But now telling a story more about family and the sport of wrestling and the story of a particular character, it's been a nice change. I'm very, very proud of the movie, and super excited that we can announce that it's debuting this weekend. So thanks for sharing.
Not this weekend, but
sorry,
on May 14th.
May 14th. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Sorry, this weekend is when there's going to be a big press release about it,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
in the local paper here, sort of announcing
Hmm.
the premiere. So, well, good. And so before we kind of bring Matt in, and I'm going to give a very nice intro, Matt, and talk about everything you're doing. Pat, let me just a real direct question to you. Why does inspiration matter? And when we started Radical, let me just put a little context here. That word really resonated with us. We believe that really for change to occur, people, community needs to be inspired, right? You have to see something greater, something better than where you're at. You have to want to actually change, and to want to change, you need to be inspired to change. So, from your perspective, Pat, why does being inspired matter? I'm putting you on the spot. We didn't rehearse this, so, but why does inspiration matter?
Yeah, I think I do think it's really gets down to the human condition at its fundamental level, and I think that you know, for us to get out of bed in the morning and have a sense of energy and purpose toward some ends or toward some end, um, inspiration is a big part of it. I think it's what you feel energetically, kind of in your bones, so to speak. It's what drives you to, look forward to work, hopefully, or look forward to being with your family, or look forward to an experience. There's something that happens, I think, almost in our brain. That's what I say, like in our bones or in our brain. I think there's something that happens, the state of being energized, that probably goes way back into evolution. In that, I think the humans who would sort of believe the stories that they hear from other humans that sort of promise something greater, and then those humans that went on to kind of take those risks, that was probably a big part of how
Yeah,
humans kind of expanded and learned. I think the ones that did that probably ended up being the humans that tended to kind of, you know,
yeah,
really persevere, whereas the ones who would like,
yeah,
probably were the ones that weren't. So I just think it's a fundamentally human thing where it's just the idea of kind of promise and potential, and I think that's what literally gives us energy and purpose, and especially as we become, as humans are conscious beings, and so maybe
yeah.
I'm getting a little too ooey or out there, but
No,
I do
I think
think, but I do
it's
think I think that's where it really lands, and I think when we that's why leaders who are inspiring. This is how some of the greatest companies in the world come into being. Organizations, sports teams, in the arts,
yeah,
musicians or actors or films that are inspiring. I mean, it just captures our imagination, holds us there in that space to kind of just be there with that. And I think that's
yeah.
where a lot of our sense of kind of purpose and being comes from.
Yeah, and I would just, add to that. I completely agree with all that, and that's exactly why I mean, people are inspired by something that challenges them and something that they believe in, and that is why organizational purpose and values and what you stand for as a company is so important
Yeah.
to inspire your people, right? You're not inspired by I got the bonus that I wanted, the salary increase that I wanted. That's all important, very important. Um, but what truly inspires that, like what you said, that core of the human being, is something that excites them and ignites them, and connects them to something greater, something they believe in. And to me, that is the magic of inspiration. So inspiration is the outcome of getting a lot of things right in an organization, such as a purpose that you stand behind and you live and you breathe, and values that you live and you breathe, and empowerment and connection, and education, which we'll talk about. Um,
Yeah, Dan, as you were describing that, I was thinking of two things. One, I was thinking about that old saying, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. And
yeah,
I do think, I mean, certainly as I get older, the idea of being inspired is really sort of when you're on the journey, and I think that's when we're engaged that way, and kind of have a sense of purpose in what we're moving toward and the way that feels, that's a big part of that journey piece. And I was also thinking about, kind of psychology 101. I was thinking of Maslow's hierarchy, right? So, I mean, as you were talking about sort of like those basic things that need to be there in terms of job and security and benefits, I mean, that's sort of the bottom rungs of Maslow's hierarchy, but we're moving up towards self-actualization, right? That's sort of the top of the pyramid. And as we're moving toward that, inspiration is what helps us move along toward that. But we can't get to that without without having those foundational pieces that are there. So this all works as a system.
Yeah, which is just a perfect segue into saying this is exactly why we need inspiring workplaces. So
Definitely.
with that, I just want to give a little background on Matt Manners, who I'm going to, in the next 2 or 3 minutes here, bring live with us. But so he is the CEO and founder of Inspiring Workplaces. And their mission statement, their core purpose is they work to change the world through the world of work by encouraging positive change in workplaces, as well as providing a source of inspiration and education for those who seek it. So I think that's a really powerful statement. And what's real exciting is this week, and I'm going to certainly let Matt give all the details about this, but at a real high level, they just launched what they call Inspire Cities. And this is, bringing it to a local level. And I believe he's gone live or set up events in 20 cities so far.
It's amazing.
And he's creating chief inspiration officers within each city. And I'm honored and lucky enough to be the one here in Minneapolis who will be taking on that role. And we're going to be bringing people together and just having, storytelling conversation, inspirational conversation, in a real authentic and transparent way. And there's some really unique and cool ways that Matt's structuring these conversations and these events. So I'm super excited for him to talk about that. And some of the cities, I just want to rattle off here because it's pretty exciting. So we have events set up. He's setting up events in Atlanta, in Belgium, in Birmingham, Boston, Brighton, Bristol, DC, and Ireland, Johannesburg, London, Miami, Minneapolis, San Francisco, New York, Stockholm, Sydney, Vienna. So, and I know he's continuing to grow this as well. So this is really, really remarkable. And talk about a community that's focused on, love and caring and inspiration and doing the right thing, and really inviting that local community that we talked about last week, Pat, to really drive and own it at that local level. I think it's a beautiful model, and I'm super proud to be a part of it, and I can't wait to chat with Matt about it more. So with that intro, Matt, I am gonna bring you live with us. So you should see an invite coming your way right now. And we have a few folks, I think, from London on, but Matt is in London. So it's, what time is it there? 6:19. 6:30.
Hello.
Matt.
Hey, Matt.
How's it going, man?
Hey, I'm good. I have been locked away, like we all have been, for about 12 months. I have Irish blood, so I don't tan, and I went in the sunshine this weekend. So I didn't know what was more offensive, my Jets hat or my sunburn. So
well, I mean, I've always been a Jets fan. That it's good. It sits well with me, unless they're playing the Vikings. Then then. But other than that, I'll root for the Jets. Looks good. So how are you doing?
Good.
Other than being sunburned. It's been a busy week for you.
And I'm fully out of my comfort zone because my purpose is to put others in the spotlight and let them share their stories. I'm honoured to be here, and it's great listening to you both just then. And I watched the documentary come out on Andre the Giant a few years ago.
Oh yeah.
And that was, like you say, the journey these people go on, the pain they go through, everything is a source of inspiration. I really look forward to watching your film too, and talk about amazing storytellers, wrestlers.
Yeah.
They really can convince you one way or the other.
Yeah. I love that. The storytelling. No, I think that's a great. You're absolutely right. I mean,
Yeah, and this film is really great because it gets into a little bit how this character was created. It's like,
Yeah,
and it's really fascinating, sort of the headwaters of this sport, and because you're right, in many ways it is characters and storytelling that ends up driving it, but then there's this physicality to it. There's some great stories about Andre the Giant too that are going to be coming, that are in this thing. So when Andre
right.
the Giant was like in Minneapolis, he would stay over at the Baron's house, and there's great stories about the kids who would come home from school and like Andre the Giant would be standing in the backyard, and they're
Yeah.
just like,
Oh my
this is
God.
like the
Yeah.
early 70s, but he was,
Yeah.
but yeah, but there's so much vintage footage in this documentary too of just the wrestlers doing their performances. And in fact, I think the Baron at some point says, this business is 80% the performance, like after the match, and 20% wrestling, because the
Yeah.
80% was the big talking and the trash talking and all that
They
stuff.
worked so hard. Like they worked so hard because it wasn't a national wrestling league, I don't think, back then. So they were
No.
traveling around all of America and
Yeah, it was like
constantly on
punk
the
rock.
road.
It was like punk rock, I mean,
Yeah.
literally they were driving around town after town playing these events, and a lot of the times too they were like borderline riots, like so the Baron talks about this, like he learned in the ring how you could feel the energy of how you bring the stadium, you bring it up,
Yeah.
and then you bring it down, and you bring it up like a maestro, and you learn that energy, and you'd want to get it as close to a riot as possible, but not quite. And just, I mean, it's just what a crazy thing to have a command of and a skill skill for over time.
Well, I was glad that Dan asked you about the what is inspiration question, because I found that was a very hard question, Dan, and I own inspiring workplaces, but I think I agree with you, Pat, that it's in your bones, and I think actually the biggest source of inspiration are other people, and their stories, and the journeys that they are going on and going through, and so I was like nodding like aggressively at that moment in time, because I think it is about our journey, and what has happened over the past 12 months has been this huge acceleration of leveling everybody up. So CEOs in their bedrooms or lounges or wherever they might be, in their sweatpants and their baseball caps, and graduates being in the exact same kind of clothing, and realizing all that like nonsense around hierarchy it has been not blown away. I think that person there, that boss, is a human. He has a dog. He's also got a really bad fashion sense when at home, and I think there's been it's been a great leveler, and reinforcing the fact that the nonsense that sometimes goes on at work, pretending not to be who you are, is just well out of date now, and almost unacceptable. You should be able to go to work with no fear, and I think that's where I'm going with this, is just bringing the human back into the workplace, and we'll give so much more.
I love it.
Yeah, that's just go back in time. Matt and I met, I think 2 years ago at a HR Tech conference, and we had my colleague at the time, Ken Oler, and the three of us had a conversation, and it was just like just the connection. We immediately just had this hour conversation that felt like it lasted 5 minutes. And, just connecting on all of these points around the importance of humanizing the workplace again, moving away from this, as we call the snapshot annual engagement survey, and then action planning, then repeat rinse cycle that we go through. And, this was all this conversation was all pre-pandemic and pre-COVID. And then, Matt, what you just said is so spot on. I mean, all of a sudden, everything changed, right? With COVID, and that leveling of what matters most is the people we work with, and we're all ultimately human. And if you're the CEO or you're my manager, we're all experiencing this, and we're all going through this uncertainty, and we're all going through these moments of hard times and concern, and we talk about, all of a sudden empathy became a word that we really needed to embrace, and humility became a word that we really needed to understand, and it didn't matter who you were, what you did at the company, you were all in it together. And so I really think everything that we've all been working towards, to a people first humanizing workplace culture, it just sped up light years fast over these past 12 months. So
Yeah.
I'm an optimist, and I believe now we can take this momentum and really do something positive with it. And the work you're doing with Inspiring Workplaces is such a great story of turning this into something positive, bringing people together, connecting, educating, inspiring. So, so tell us a little bit about especially Inspire Cities, because I think it's a really, really cool concept, and kind of how you got the idea and what you hope to see progress over the next few months, 12 months.
Talking about myself.
You're being interviewed, and you deserve it. I know you love to
Yeah.
interview other people, and you're awesome at it, but you get the spotlight for this hour. So
yeah, you're on.
You've earned it.
No, I think it comes down to spotlight and recognizing. About 7 years ago, I set up what was then called the Employee Engagement Awards, because the reaction I was getting from CEOs in the UK and the US was, we know what our people think. We ask them to do a survey once a year, and I just got fed up with that stupid response, to be frank. So I wanted to try and recognize people that were really putting their necks on the line, asking for money to try things, fail quickly, to improve the employee experience and the organization too. So it doesn't have to be all about the experience. It can improve the business, and fundamentally it will do. As we know, the employee experience drives customer experience and so on. So I've long believed in people and their stories and their goals, and Inspiring Workplaces was born out of that, and we just wanted to try and develop the community more, and get more of these stories, and so we were going to announce our evolution into Inspiring Workplaces last year. I think it's last year, because the past 12 to 18 months is just a blur now, in New York, but I did that from my bedroom in the suburbs of London instead. And Inspire Cities was something I wanted to launch with Inspiring Workplaces as the global free movement. But essentially, it's a face-to-face concept. And in between then and now, Clubhouse has come out, and Clubhouse has done me a huge favor in presenting that audio and conversations are really important, because having impact on your doorstep in your organization and meeting like-minded individuals in your city and surrounding suburbs is so powerful, whilst being part of a bigger global movement too. So the whole sense of belonging, and the premise of Inspire Cities, when they start going in Minneapolis and London and New York and the other cities you've mentioned, we've actually had 20 inquiries for other cities like Brisbane and Calgary, just the other side of the border. So in the past 24 hours too. But the concept is this: you at the heart of it, and your story and experience. No presentations, no decks, no screens, and we're all sat in a circle. So kind of like going back to the dawn of time thing, in the cave or around the campfire, and sharing those experiences and learning and inspiring one another from our successes and failures and our journey. So in the first 20 events starting in September, mid-September, fingers crossed, and then probably going through to like February, because of different times will come out of COVID around the world, is going to be on creating inclusive cultures. And each event will have about 4 storytellers. They'll get up with their microphone in the circle, or the inspiring, as we call it. We'll all be sat round in a circle, equal, in a safe environment. And they will have 10 minutes to share their experience on creating an inclusive culture, whatever that may be. And I think we're going to see some really cultural differences from around the world. And then there'll be a 10-minute group conversation around that story, and repeat 4 times, so for about 90 minutes. And then all those stories will be posted online through Inspiring Workplaces, so you can have that local, global feel. And for me, to have 100 to 150 storytellers around creating inclusive cultures from one side of the planet to the other is going to be a huge source of inspiration, because we're going to get, again, that leveling up of, doesn't matter what title this person has, you'll be there focused purely on them as a human being, sharing their experience for 10 minutes. And as movie makers, you know, we're going to try and create the perfect 10-minute story of like setting the scene and then the journey you've gone through, and whether it's a sad or a happy ending. And just to really share those experiences and get people to work together on a human level to build trust. Because essentially, if you go on our website, it's communicated much more poetically than I'm going to do it now. But there's 5 dimensions to storytelling, and you know, you're curious and you care about the person telling the story, and by listening to that storyteller, you actually build empathy and trust. So if we have inspiring storytellers throughout our organizations, we'll be building empathy and trust within them, and then everything else that goes with that, the structures and the policies that we have to have. But that's where I'm heading, and working with you as a chief inspiration officer, and hopefully having 100 of them around the world. I get very, very energized, considering I've been locked down for a year in my bedroom, about the impact we can make on creating psychologically safe workplaces all over the world, and with it, everything else that goes with that. So that's it in a nutshell. Wow. It'll be easier once we've done an event and you can see it in the flesh.
Well, you know, when you asked me to take on the responsibility of Minneapolis again, I was honored, and you know, immediately said yes. And I think what was what was exciting for me, and this is kind of my personal story around this, is obviously Minneapolis right now needs healing and needs connection and needs people coming together. But we're certainly not the only city. I think every city can use that. But personally and selfishly, having that opportunity to help Minneapolis heal and bring businesses together for a lot of reasons. Obviously, we've been locked away. There's been a lot of, you know, social injustice here in Minneapolis. It's been it's been a big part of what we're hoping to be a change movement that continues to change in the right direction. But bringing people together, I was really honored to have that opportunity, number one. And number two, the opportunity to connect, just like you were saying, with all these other incredible, what we're labeling chief inspiration officers, which I love, across cities around the globe, and sharing what we learn. So it's not just the local communities coming together and business professionals coming together. It's actually the chief inspiration officers. So talk about network analysis and connection across the globe. This will really kickstart an incredible global community that's sort of owned at the local level, and that's really hard to do. And I'm just really proud of you putting this together, and again, honored to be a part of it.
Yeah, it's really exciting. Hey, can you guys hear me? I had some technical issues.
Yeah.
We're all good. Okay, great. I lost my connection for a few minutes, so I missed some of the conversation. But I love the way you're designing this too, Matt. How you know, these events are really this is what we were talking about at the head of the hour too. Humans coming together, literally in a circle, sort of campfire style, to listen and connect. And I do think that through the complicated world that we live in now, through tech. I mean, tech has helped, like in many ways, it's wow what we've learned about how it can help us connect. I mean, especially through the pandemic, for those of us lucky enough to be able to, you know, work from home and still continue to do work virtually. It's been, you know, it's been a savior for a lot of us. But then there's that human way, but it's the way of connecting at sort of the most primal level of how we kind of connect and listen and understand. And that really is inspiration at its core. And I love how you're designing for that. What are you learning, and maybe you're at the beginning of this journey, or maybe you've had quite a bit of experience, but what are you learning, like the differences between when you say have literally people together in a room who are listening and learning from each other, versus doing that, trying to have a proxy for that, you know, whether it's Clubhouse or it's some other platform? What are you kind of learning about that kind of digital versus, I guess we'll call it analog experience?
All I can do is what we've been living through, I guess, versus what we did before. At our events, and it'll be like 3 years between an actual event, which is quite mind-bending when you think about it. that was my energy source, and I know that was an energy source for the people in the room. And we never went after the titles of people. Not that there's nothing wrong with a title. We went for the people who did the work, who were right there in the thick of it, and by doing that, you get that passion. You get the passion, and you feel the pain that people go through, and that's what people relate to, because social and the world we've created in that front is always good news. And life isn't like that. Life can be a struggle, and it can have highs and lows. And I think I don't know whether you can get that as impactfully as in the room, somebody 10 foot from you sharing that and catching them in the eye in that moment. I don't think you can recreate that. And I agree that technology. This is definitely not an egg on technology at all, because it's empowered us in ways that we couldn't possibly imagine, which is the annoyance of why we weren't doing it for decades beforehand. But no, I genuinely get really, really excited, and that's why I got a lot of pressure over the past 12 months to launch this virtually, and I resisted, and we still are 6 months before our first event, but it will be a face-to-face event, because I feel that, as you're saying, in our bones, there's something about being together.
Yeah, and I think that's spot on, and I agree. And technology has kept us connected as best it can over these tough times. But you're absolutely right. You can sort of paint the story to be a little brighter and rosier, right? I mean, even conferences, and I love some of the online conferences. The majority of work is pre-recorded, right? So takes are being done to get it right. It's being edited more, so we're lacking that sort of, that just real life, human being to human conversation, making a mistake, stumbling over a word, this stuff that makes us human. And I think, and it's almost glamorized it a little too much and made it just too easy to put on a show. And I don't want to insult anyone who puts on, it's not easy to put on any show, especially a massive virtual show. But I completely agree with you. I mean, bringing people together, we're in desperate need for that. If we believe in humanizing the workplace, that's not going to happen in a virtual way. That's going to happen in a face-to-face way.
And I think that obviously throws up challenges that we're talking about now. That people can work from anywhere now, in the remote working world, and I think hopefully in some ways these events will replace that lack of human contact that some might suddenly find themselves having that gap with. So that's because I think people are a source of inspiration. I think that's the main source of any inspiration is other people. And we should be source of inspiration as colleagues. And I think you only get there when you become real, and you're your true self. I don't think you can inspire if you're not yourself.
No,
and that's
authenticity is key. And actually, Pat, it sounds like you have a question. Then this is a perfect segue into a second topic here.
I was just going to just one quick comment, and then jump in with the question, Dan. But there is no proxy, I think, for those shared moments those moments we share together. I think that's what I'm trying to say. So and I think when you're in 3 dimensions in a room with people, and there's someone, we're all experiencing that speaker together. You're reading the body language in the room, because humans are really complex. The subtleties, the things we do, and we're leaning in and really listening. When things get quiet, the fidgeting starts to disappear. Everyone's really there in the moment with that speaker. When those dynamics start to happen, there's just no way that you can that can be, at least not till we get to holograms or something. But there's just no way in 2 dimensions in video we can have that experience. And I do think you're right. That's what's missing, and especially as we move forward into more and more hybrid work situations. I think it's as employee experience designers, that's going to be a big part of our work. Is how do we honor the way that people are going to be wanting to work from home in a lot of different places. That's just going to be the reality, and there's certainly benefits to that. But then also, how do you design times when people come together, and when they do come together, make sure it's really high quality, and make sure that we're having those, that kind of tribe building, human connecting, moments that we carry with us when we move forward on our journeys.
And that's
right?
going to be a real challenge. That's going to be a real challenge. And one I don't have an answer for.
Yeah, we're all in this. Yeah, we're all
Yeah.
moving forward in this journey and learning as we go, right?
Yeah.
You know, I hope one thing we learned is we don't take for granted the time we can spend with people. I mean, I think we took it for granted for a long time because we always assumed we could spend time, we could connect. But I think when we get together in organizations, whether it's a team meeting, whether it's an offsite, whether it's training, we're really going to cherish that more and learn more and be more authentic and really take it. This is my hope, that we don't fall back to our own ways of checking emails, spending half the meeting popping out to a phone call. Like we have to let's leverage the time we have. Then that's the new workplace, right? It was when we come together, let's be together, let's be productive together, let's inspire each other. Let's not go into our corners and pretend, there's 30 people behind me, but I'm not going to pay attention to you. So I think we have an incredible learning and an opportunity ahead of us. Which kind of leads me to, a part of your, Matt, a part of your mission and your kind of purpose statement also talks about to educate. And I love that word, and here's why, and this will lead to a question, is we talk a lot about, learning, developing, and obviously all important things, but we don't talk about, educating as much in the workplace. And especially we don't talk about educating on how can we learn to show more empathy with each other? How can we learn to listen more effectively? How can we learn to embrace a more inclusive workforce, right? How can we learn to be inspired and to inspire, right? These are things from an education standpoint. Is there HR training for this? And how do we know how important this is, but I don't think we're ready yet. Organizations don't really have training programs to do this. And so I guess my question for you is how do we start to really make sure that we are educating and allowing, sorry, my conference phone was ringing, and allowing people to learn and be educated across these other concepts and greater concept around humanization and empathy and humility and caring and trust and love and those things that are so important in the workplace?
Very good question. One we're trying to find an answer to right now in the background. So maybe something coming from us in 2022. Not that we've got enough on and as it is, but I think it's built into us, a lot of these qualities. I think it's there when we're being brought up by our parents. And for some reason, there's a sudden disconnect as you grow up and go into the workforce and go into the workplace. You have to, and I keep coming back to it. I think you have to create an environment of no fear, and then build on shifting mindsets. So, what was perceived to be the right way of behaving at work to get ahead is probably going against what's the right way of acting as a good human being, listening and being inclusive, and so I think it's almost, again, just I keep coming back, like stripping everything back, giving permission to behave as a good person and the rewards that come from that. But that might be seen as too wishy-washy for a workplace. But I think that there's been proof there by Bain that an inspired employee is more productive than an engaged one. They're more fulfilled, they work harder, they give more of themselves to the company, they share ideas, they're curious, they challenge people. So all that stuff that goes with that makes you keep improving your process in the organization because you're more curious. So yeah, I think there's just basically has to be a mindset shift, and that comes from the top. That comes from leaders saying that enough's enough. We don't want to behave like this anymore. We want to behave the other way that has started to come in over the past 12 months. And as you're saying, my main purpose in life for the next 12 months is to stop the bungee cord snapping back and people returning back to bad habits and not trusting their people and giving them the tools to do their job. And push forward from where we've got to now. not a very eloquent answer, I know, but that's probably the best you're going to get.
It was a very inspiring answer.
It was, and just to push into that a little further, so if we think about education, okay, I'm just taking a step back and I'm imagining I'm responsible for employee experience design at an organization, or maybe I'm an employee engagement manager or a talent manager or an SVP of HR or a CEO, whatever, someone who thinks about people every day. How should I be thinking about education? Like, so to pick up on what you said, if I'm thinking about the changing world and the changing contexts, I'm thinking about the culture of an organization and how it is where it is. I need to evolve it. Kind of how do I start thinking about education? Am I changing, kind of a code of conduct, expectations? Am I where do I kind of begin to start to think about engaging in that educational process? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I'm going to give that one to Dan, I think. I want to hear what Dan's views on that one.
Okay, Dan. Nice.
So, I mean, I think, well, again, I think it comes down to just understanding that, to empower, to kind of change, it's a mindset shift, number one. So I think for CEOs and those responsible for, design thinking to really start to shift to a kind of a people first mindset and people first culture. Like any change, you need to see successes along the way. So for example, you need to see those small moments that say, if I empower you and I give you more authority, and I ask you guys to make this decision, you'll start to see life gets easier for me. So people, sometimes hold on to this for very, less, I would say less inspiring approach of leadership, because they think they need to hold on to the reins and be responsible for it. So once they see positive success and positive growth and positive change, I think this is that mindset shift will naturally start to happen. That's what I believe, and that's how real change happens and movements happen over time.
I think, like most things, it'd be good to actually ask the people as well. Like, listening is always the best first step, and just asking, do you feel you can be yourself at work? That'd be an interesting snapshot into what kind of culture we've got here, and are people bringing themselves and giving themselves fully. I think that'd be a really interesting way of just coming back into work and going, okay, where are we with this? And then how much you need to do. What kind of triage? Is it bad or is it getting better?
Yeah, and I think that's that whole person. Can someone do? We've spent too much time, not allowing someone to come in and truly, be who they are. Let their true selves shine. And I think HR has some work to do there. HR has a lot of work to do there, and because they're ultimately responsible for that in many cases. And it's being comfortable asking questions about really what matters to someone personally, what motivates them. Because like you said, and I love your statement, an inspired employee is much more productive than an engaged employee. Mm-hmm. Now, I would also argue that an inspired employee is likely engaged, but to get engaged, you need to be inspired. So I think this concept of inspiration is just so important. We have to, and to inspire, again, you need to feel free to be yourself, be fearless, be open, be free to say things and not be afraid of any repercussions. That's just such a critical part of this.
Yeah, obviously Amy Edmondson's one of my heroes, and love her writing. But I think also organisations need to stack up. And I use an example around New York during June and Pride Month. You cannot walk anywhere in New York without seeing a rainbow flag on a shop window or an office window. And I've gay family and friends, and very close friends and family, and they're going, does that bank really care about, can a gay person in that bank be gay and be fearless? And they're going in that front door every day, and it's a cascaded in rainbow colors, but does that stack up? And I think I just think it comes back to things like that as well. That you need to practice what you preach, and yeah, it's just, there's a big journey to go on, and we're never gonna finish the journey. And what we're trying to do, as I always say to anybody I speak to who is like literally struggling with what they have to do internally, sometimes we're trying to cure society's woes and ills within the workplace, and that's a big responsibility for somebody to try and deal with. And we need to give people the freedom to try things without persecution, and to fail often without the worry of, because if their heart's in the right place, then you need to give people some freedom and some leeway, some rope.
Yeah. And just to push into that a little bit further too, I don't know why I keep using that expression. I've never used that before. I guess it's the invention of the day. I just saw a post this morning from Lars Schmidt, and it's something, Dan, you and I have talked about, and it's sort of like what's too far in terms of it being inclusive. And the nature of his post is, he talked about Basecamp, the company Basecamp. Have you guys heard about it? Yeah. So Basecamp has basically said, traditionally a very progressive Silicon Valley kind of a culture, and we're accommodating, but Basecamp finally said, okay, no more political conversations here. You can't bring your politics in. Everything else is cool, but you can't talk about politics. And it's just reverberating through the company and now through the industry, because it's like, whoa, because it's like, we can talk, sure, we can talk about pride, we can talk about, all these kinds of issues maybe that the progressive part of society deems appropriate, but don't bring, to me, it's sort of a, don't bring in your super conservative ideas is kind of what it's saying. Well, there's no place for it here. And there's different ways you can come at this and frame it and think about it. And Dan and I have had this conversation with others too over the last 3 months. It's a really hard conversation.
This is a whole nother podcast, what you just
We
could spend an hour on this.
But I think what's important, Matt, is this is a journey, and one of the things I've been thinking about, especially reflecting over the last few months, is like, nobody has all the answers. There's no one person who has a full understanding of the right things to be doing and the right strategies. And per the human experience, we're best when we come together to kind of figure it out. And over time, try to be as inclusive as possible. But there's also some things that feel just wrong, and it's not the first time as a society or as a world we've had to deal with these things before. But it's something we need to consider. We need to think through. We need to have empathy for that. And to me, I always think like the mindset you need to bring in. Just, you can never assume that you've got all the answers or that any one person does. It's going to continue to be a dialogue, and per your point, a journey. And but no matter what, we've got to bring an open mind to it, and we've got to bring an experimental approach to it, and hopefully in the end we're making decisions that serve the most people the best.
And I think from coming with a tragic murder of George Floyd in your hometown, forced the world to reflect and have uncomfortable conversations that just couldn't be not had anymore. And I had them, and we, as a company, we talked about it, and we said, do we want to find our voice on this and put ourselves out there a bit? Because again, we've probably been passive over the years, and want to try and start to have those uncomfortable conversations and have and we decided we were going to do that, and I think again, this is where the idea of the cities thing comes from, is getting in the room with somebody who's had an experience at work and what that made them feel like, positively or negatively, can have a huge impact, and go, I never realized it was like that for you. And it might not be somebody they work with, and they go, okay, and they go back into their workplace and go, right, I now have an understanding of that for that group of people. You could be feeling that right now, and that's unacceptable. So I'm going to go in there and try and change it, because I've connected with somebody at that event, and I never understood before, because it's not my life and my journey. And so I think that's where we're getting to with this. It's those shared experiences to drive change. And like I say, Minneapolis is one that it's through tragedy is driving change in a way that we would never have imagined a year ago either. So we actually postponed launch of the business for 10 days because we just couldn't believe what was going on in the world. So.
Well, I think what you're doing is awesome, and I think it's, Pat, just to pick up on what on Lars's post and about Basecamp. I mean, I'll just go on the record to say I think that's not the way you handle an inclusive work culture. I think bringing people together to find common ground and understand and listen, and you can disagree and you can still find connection with each other. And connection, we're almost out of time here, was my last piece of this conversation I wanted to talk about, but by ignoring things that we don't necessarily agree with, or because I think fundamentally, human beings, and I believe this, if you strip back politics, identity politics, most people want the same thing. They just have different ideas of how to get there, right? Most people want to feel like they can be loved and live in a world that's safe and have friends and be healthy and have a good job and have opportunity, and like this stuff is fundamental. And I think where we differ is on how to get there, and this is also what divides us and is tearing us apart. So I think to sort of say, well, to me, that's not actually fixing the source. That's just a Band-Aid, because this conversation is causing friction. This friction is causing problems with how teams work. So therefore, you just can't talk about it. Versus saying, okay, wait a second, let's take a little time and understand where people are coming from and give them a safe place where maybe they can learn and understand and agree to disagree. And so I know that's a whole nother conversation, but the work you're doing, Matt, around this is bringing people together, and this storytelling. There's, sharing stories about the good and the bad and the ugly, right? This Inspiring Workplaces is not meant to have 4 speakers come out for 10 minutes and tell beautiful, happy stories and happy endings.
No, and I think to where you were going with that, I know we're almost out of time, so thanks very much. It's flown like in Vegas at the Starbucks.
And that was during the day, by the way. There was no.
It was during the day.
To be fair.
Thank goodness.
It was still flowing.
I think that again, because everything's been so polarized, and you're either right or wrong. You're with me or against me, and I think again that's been one of maybe subconsciously the drivers of getting people in a room. And you might have a preconceived notion on something, and then you hear and you're watching somebody share their experience, and that might just get obliterated forever. And you go, okay, I can't believe I thought like that or had that opinion because of the echo chamber I'm living in. And now my opinion has changed, and I'm going to go try and fix that problem. And that's my hope for it, because I think deep down, stripped back, we're all just people, and generally want to try and do the right thing. And so that's what it. And you can't ignore that at work. We are people at work, so that's where it comes from. So I'm just really. I hope I've made sense. I hope. Been a good guest, but I really appreciate your time, and I can't wait to get out to the Twin Cities.
That's great.
So as soon as they let me, I'll be on a plane, and I'll be in the Inspiring watching. Yeah.
Outstanding. Well, thank you so much, and again for everyone, go to Inspiring Workplaces. Is it inspiring-workplaces.com?
It is.
Remind me. Inspiring. And check out. It's coming to 20 cities near you, and sounds like many more to be scheduled into the future. So. Again, thanks for the work you're doing. I'm very proud to be a part of this in Minneapolis, and this won't be the first time we talk about this. I suspect this will be a regular conversation we're having. So thank you for being an incredibly awesome guest. So you're not just a great behind the scenes guy, you are a great star as well. So thank you.
Yeah, this is a really great conversation, Matt. Really, really enjoyed it. Thank you for your honesty, and thank you for your great work and leadership in this.
Thank you, and good luck with the film.
Thank you.
Great. Yeah. Yes, thank you, and thanks to our awesome community. And hey, a quick note, shout out to the community. If anyone's having problems writing comments, after last time I got a lot of emails saying I couldn't send a comment. Like, did you block me? Like, I don't even know. There's no way. It's like, no, you can't even block it. So do let me know and reach out to me via LinkedIn, or if you have my email, and do let me know because there's been some Crowdcast issues, and we're trying to get that resolved. So anyway, that was just some housekeeping, and we will see you next week, the same time, same place. And Matt, have a wonderful evening. Thank you for taking your evening here, and keep inspiring people as you do.
Thank you. Thanks
Stay
very
out of the
much.
sun.
Thanks, everyone.
Stay out of the sun, Matt.
Yeah. Take care.
See ya.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Go Jets. See ya.